Venesland, the special coordinator for the Middle East peace process, today said that he was deeply concerned by the Israeli government's decision yesterday to alter settlement planning procedures that have been in place since 1996, which is expected to expedite settlement expansion. He is also alarmed by the anticipated advancement next week of over 4,000 settlement housing units by Israeli planning authorities. We reiterate that the establishment by Israel of settlements in the Palestinian territory occupied since 1967, including East Jerusalem, has no legal validity and constitutes a flagrant violation under international law.
For some analysis, let's bring in Tahani Mustafa in Amman, Jordan. She's a Palestine analyst with International Crisis Group. Tahani, thanks for joining us on this news hour. Firstly, what are your thoughts on the passing of this new law and the expansion of Israeli settlements in the occupied West Bank?
Well, I mean, this is just a continuation of Israeli policy that's been purely punitive. It's a tougher and harsher application of the stick, and that has limits. The Israelis are ramping up everything from settlement activity, encouraging settler violence, targeted assassinations. I mean, the list goes on. And right now, Palestinians feel like there's no horizon. Things aren't getting better. Things are getting so much more worse. And Israeli brutality and collective punishment isn't enough to deter them any longer.
Do you think, with things getting worse, do you think that is down to the current coalition government and the right-wing elements in it, or is it a continuation from the previous governments and the policies that they had already put in place?
I mean, it's a combination of both. We've had hardline Israeli governments for years, and this has been probably, I mean, the current administration, has been the most hardline, and it's trying to push settlement activity, including the repression of Palestinians, as far as it can. And right now, Palestinians feel like there's no way out for them. I mean, it was, eventually going to happen. This current government ran on a campaign of expansionism and hardline tactics towards Palestinians. And right now, the administration is playing to a domestic audience that favors expansionism and a hardline on Palestinians.
That domestic audience, though, when it comes to the international audience, like the UN, like the US, a key ally to Israel, they've all called for de-escalation. They've all said what Israel is doing is illegal, which it is under international law. But why is that not deterring Benjamin Netanyahu's government?
Because it comes at absolutely no cost to Netanyahu's government. It's one thing to make statements. It's another thing to actually put those statements into action. And right now, the international community has failed to place any kind of measures, any actual tangible measures on Israel beyond statements of concern, not even condemnation, concern, while still providing financial support, still engaging with this current government, which, by the way, like Hamas, does not, as the international community claim, like Hamas, does not even abide by the quartet conditions that they've placed on international engagement on organizations like Hamas and Islamic Jihad. This current Israeli government does not abide by any of those, and yet the international community still continues diplomatic engagement as well as financial support. So of course there's going to be no incentivization beyond rhetoric unless there's any action to follow that rhetoric. Israel knows that it can continue to behave with complete impunity.
So all talk and no action then from the international community. Tahani, I want to bring it back to what we've seen happening in Jenin and the refugee camp there. Why is this area such a flashpoint right now?
I mean, again, this goes back to the fact that, Israel's policy has been purely punitive. It's been brutal. It's been arbitrary. It's been incredibly violent, especially with the current hardline government. The incident we saw yesterday, that was a search and arrest operation of many that we've seen just this year alone. Let's not forget that back in January, we saw also another incident in Jenin that was at that time described as the worst since the Second Intifada, and this has obviously outdone that. And again, when we often see search and arrest operations by Israel, those often have death and casualty counts. And again, this is just the latest in a long series of raids. And sooner or later, those armed groups Israel has been targeting would work out a way to set up an effective ambush. They've seen their operations often enough.
Tahani Mustafa, really appreciate your analysis, speaking to us there from Jordan's capital. Thank you so much.